Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Harmonious World. This week I'm joined by musical director of Down for the Count, Mike Paul Smith. Down for the Count is a collective of professional musicians who entertain. They've played everywhere and for everybody. I thought it would be an interesting time to find out from Mike Paul Smith what they've been up to during lockdown. Thank you so much for joining me.
That's all right, no problem.
So, this is for my podcast, Harmonious World, and I am actually getting listeners, which never ceases to amaze me.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about Lockdown for the Count.
Yep.
And in general terms about how Down for the Count came about. Can I start by asking you, what's your involvement in Down for the Count and how did all of this come about?
Sure. So I run the band. It's all my fault. I started the band in my last year of school in Buckinghamshire in 2005. So it's been going 15 years now. I run it, musical director, and also take care of all the organising and logistics of performing. Very
good. Herding cats, I imagine.
Herding cats, yes. Especially with it being quite a large ensemble. It tends not to go much smaller than a 10-piece, and that's quite a few cats to herd. And the more people you have, the more complicated it gets, obviously.
Right. So you tend to go out with 10 people.
Yeah. So most of our work is performing at jazz clubs and theatre shows, and we developed this lineup a few years back, which we call a mini big band. So it's basically a rhythm section of piano, bass, drums, and usually guitar, 5 horns, so 2 trumpets and 3 saxophones, and anything from 1 to 3 vocalists. And it's a sort of a small band that will fit on the stage at most venues and most theatres, but also lets you have sort of some of that big band sound that you get from Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman and Duke Ellington and people like that. Obviously nothing's quite like having a full big band, but it makes a really nice sound, and it's really a sort of flexible, quite dynamic ensemble that we really enjoy performing with.
I listened to the tracks that you've got on Lockdown for the Count, and you're definitely going for that swing vibe, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. We love swing music. We love how it just makes you want to dance, basically. And what we've tried to do with this EP, we've tried to make the most of the situation at the moment by expanding it, because obviously there's not many venues that could fit, a full-size orchestra, at least not many venues that we could afford to hire right at the moment. So we thought that we'd, try and do, the biggest ensemble that we could. So we sort of expanded the band to 35 people for the EP. To really make the most of the sort of the sounds of sort of what came slightly after the swing era, I suppose, the Capitol Studios era of the 50s and 60s, and artists like Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole. And they'd have that luxury of getting 35 musicians into the same room at the same time. To create a great sound, and that's what we're going for. I mean,
I always think of Quincy Jones orchestras and sort of going a bit more jazz, Buddy Rich, and that somebody like Buddy Rich can have 35 people because he can afford it,
Yeah, well, exactly,
So those were the days, weren't they, of the big band,
Exactly.
So talk me through the process of the recording of Lockdown for the Count, because it must have been interesting.
It was interesting. So I'm quite old school. I don't really enjoy sort of studio trickery. I like to have everyone in the same room at the same time recording together, and I'll accept all the imperfections of doing that, because I think the overall result is better. You get a more sort of harmonious sound, I suppose. But obviously we can't do that at the moment. It wouldn't be responsible of us, wouldn't be legal to do that. So we're looking for new ways of doing it, and the way that we found was best is you sort of have to layer up the recording. So you send it to the drummer first, and he plays along basically to a metronome, with no music going on around him. It must be really boring for him. So he'll record, and then he'll send that to the bassist, and the bassist will have the bass line, and then you'll send it to the guitar player and the piano player, and basically just sort of get it to the point where you've got enough layers that the people who are added on top, like the horns and the strings and the vocals, have something that they can sort of perform with. And
Yeah.
so then they all do that, they all send it back to me. And basically you then have to juggle up all these individual, we call them stems from each musician, and put them into a big project on your computer and try and make it sound like we are in the same room at the same time. Of course, everyone's recording on different devices. Some people have some, pretty nice home recording stuff. Other people don't, and are literally recording it on their iPhone,
Wow.
which they put in front of them. Some people who have problems maybe they don't have a printer to print out the sheet music, so are trying to read the tiny music on their iPhone whilst also recording on it as well. And everyone's sort of been finding ways of adapting to do that at the moment. And then it all then comes down to the mixing process and getting it all together and sounding good, which I do and really enjoy. And that's basically how you create a lockdown recording. I still prefer doing it in person, but it is, at the same time, it's amazing what you can do with a bit of sort of creativity and ingenuity.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, it really, really doesn't sound like 35 people in 35 different rooms. It's quite extraordinary, actually.
Yes, I mean, some people who have been following us for years have said things like it's the best thing you've ever done and it's the best you've ever sounded, which maybe is bad news for people who own recording studios all over the place. But then again, like I said earlier, it's also, we've used that as an opportunity to record with more musicians than we normally would as well. So just doing that alone is going to give it a sort of a bigger, fuller sound than we would have done previously.
So how did you go about choosing the tracks that you recorded?
That's a good question. Some of them we had already. In January, we did a recording session in the proper studio, back when we could do those sorts of things. And we had 15 songs that we'd like to have on an album, and we recorded 8 on that first day. So we had some left over that were ready to go and ready to record. We also wanted there to be, just the hint of a theme to the Lockdown EP. So all of the songs maybe just say something a little bit about the situation at the moment. So we've got Don't Get Around Much Anymore, which is quite obvious. We've got Ain't Misbehaving, which Pat Waller wrote in an alimony prison, apparently, because for not keeping up child support payments or whatever the equivalent was in the 1920s. And Let's Face the Music and Dance, and That's Life. Just songs with, I guess, a slightly more positive message, and maybe something that you could spin to put about the current situation. And then it's just songs that we like and wanted to record. That's Life was suggested by the singer Richard Shelton, who is based in LA, who I've never met, but we've been able to collaborate remotely on this, which is another positive from doing it like this at the moment. I
Like Pie.
Yes,
that's a great song, isn't it?
Yes, I like Pie. It's an interesting track. That's one that's written in the 20s. Basically, we were feeling a bit sorry for everyone. We play for lots of weddings as well, and lots of people are having to sort of postpone big celebrations like that, and even the things that aren't getting postponed, like birthdays, they're getting celebrated in a quite unusual way at the moment. So we sort of wanted to do something dedicated to everyone who's had a birthday in lockdown or had to postpone a big event for lockdown. And that was the song we came up with, which is, it's a silly song, but we enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the EP, the sales, 50% are in aid of Mind.
Yes, so 50% of the profits are getting donated to the charity Mind, who supports anyone with a mental health problem. We wanted to make it a charitable project from the beginning, and we spent a bit of time thinking about what the most appropriate charities to support would be. We were doing this sort of probably in early May, talking about which charities to support, because mental health problems can affect anyone at any time, but the more we go through the current lockdown and the more we realise how isolated people are, the more aware we are that there's sort of a mental health pandemic waiting to happen after after this one is over. And we think that mental health is sort of all encompassing and covers everyone from every walk of life. and it really felt like the most appropriate charity for us to support. And people have been really generous so far. Most of our EP sales are from Bandcamp, which is sort of a bit like the more moral iTunes or Spotify. And on there, people can choose to pay whatever they want for it. There's a minimum price of £6 for the EP, but there's a button, if you want to pay more, you can. Designed for Bandcamp, do it for people who want to support the artists that people are buying. But because this is for charity, people have been incredibly generous. And loads of people are paying more than we're asking for, so that we're going to be able to donate even more to Mind at the end than we had hoped.
That's really fantastic.
We're really grateful for.
So let's talk in general about Down for the Count. Talk to me about some of the venues you've played.
So we've done most of the jazz clubs in the UK. The top one's Ronnie Scott's. We've played there twice now, sold out both times. We were meant to be there back in April, and we'd sold that out as well, and then obviously that got postponed. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be back in October. We perform at the Pizza Express Jazz Club in Soho, the Hideaway Jazz Club in Streatham. And then further around the country, it tends to be more sort of the small theatres, so sort of 200 to 400 seat theatres. And we're trying to tour as many places in the UK as possible. We went up to Scotland in January, which was a really lovely experience, and we were made to feel so welcome there. So we're hoping to go back to Scotland with 7 dates next January, and then keep touring around the UK. We've done a few shows in Europe at a jazz club in Paris called Caveau de la Houssette, which apparently is the oldest jazz club in Europe.
Wow.
And our plan for summer 2020 was to try and do some more European jazz clubs and festivals. And for 2021, with everything getting sort of postponed and pushed back a year, we might have to postpone and push our plans for doing that back as well. But that's certainly what we're hoping to do.
Right. When we finally come out of lockdown, what would your dream be for starting again?
I mean, the ultimate dream would be that we can just suddenly go back to performing week in, week out like we used to, with sold out audiences. That would be absolutely lovely. But obviously that's probably not going to happen. We're sort of coming up with plans for maybe performing to reduced audiences. Theatres and venues are talking about having to space out audiences as well. We obviously have to think about that as well, how we space ourselves out on the stage. But yeah, we hope to get back performing as soon as we can, hopefully in September. And we've also got plans to finish off the album, which we started in January in the studio. We'd love to get that finished so that we can tour that next year. And that's an album that features more or less the lineup that you hear on the Lockdown EP, the strings and the horns and the really big orchestral sound. So that's our dream, to hopefully get that finished and released and get back touring as soon as we can.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
As for rehearsal, it's going to be one of the great things about the band is that because Down for the Count play together 2 or 3 times a week, we're really tight without having to rehearse, and it will be interesting to see what happens on the first day back, having not played together for, it might be 4 months, 6 months. So I think there might be a couple of rehearsals necessary as well, whilst we remember which way the instrument is which. Although saying that, lots of people have been doing more individual practice than we would under normal circumstances right now. So the standard of musicianship worldwide might improve. Who knows? Well,
yes. I mean, I think for some people it's given them an opportunity to do more practice, but for other people, all of a sudden there are people in the house and you don't necessarily want to be practicing when there are people in the house.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Yes, exactly. So I it'll be interesting to see. But I think also, thinking again about your support of Mind, that actually music can be such a positive influence on people's lives, but it can also be a difficult thing to do if you're feeling down. You're not always feeling very creative, and so I think there's a double-edged thing.
Yeah, we've had a bit of that, like even recording like the Lockdown EP, and we've given ourselves 2 weeks per song and stuff like that, and not everyone has been sort of in the right frame of mind to do it right away. And One musician we were hoping to have involved didn't feel able to do so in the end because they weren't feeling in a great sort of creative space. So
Sure.
I suppose that's, like you said, another reason for supporting Mind at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to my listeners about how they can support you, how they can find out more about your music.
So our website is downforthecount.co.uk. If you head there, there's a link to our Bandcamp store on our album store on Bandcamp, and our Spotify and YouTube channels. We're also on Facebook as well. If you just search for Down for the Count, you should find the band easily enough. And you can all the lockdown recordings, by the way, are accompanied by a video of us in our houses. And you'll see that we there's lots of people in the band have a active sense of humour, which comes across in the videos. So I'd really encourage your listeners to find the YouTube channel and see what we look like and have actually got up to in our houses.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
Yeah, and when your new album comes out, when you've got it recorded and it's coming out, let's do this again and we'll do a catch-up.
Will do. Yeah, we'll let you know about touring. Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Hertfordshire, in Hitchin. So,
really? Okay. Yeah. Our bass player and one of the sax players from Hitchin. Do you know Charlie Pine?
Oh, I know Charlie Pine really well.
You know, of course you do. Like, you're from Hitchin, everyone knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charlie Pine and Luke are involved in the band as well. We're hoping to get a show sort of round the Hearts area because that'll bring everyone in Hitchin to the show. So
well, absolutely.
We'll let you know about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, the jazz club in St Albans has got some great stuff, going on. And our local venue is really, really good. It's called Club 85, but it's far too small. It's, the stage might get 10 of you on, but it would be tight, and certainly not with social distancing.
Yeah, that's the problem with jazz clubs outside of London for us, is that they're set up for 4 and 5 piece bands, and it makes it hard for us to do jazz club shows apart from the places in London. But we're hoping to get a theatre show sorted in Hearts as soon as we can.
Fantastic. Yeah, please do. Well, it's really nice to talk to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks. Bye.
See you soon. Bye now.
Yeah.
Bye.
So that was Mike Paul Smith, who is the band manager of Down for the Count. Check them out on YouTube, Bandcamp. If you just find them online, you've got all the links. So that was the latest edition of Harmonious World. I hope you enjoyed it. I have some exciting interviews already booked, so watch out for those coming up. Thank you for joining me. Please leave a review if you can, and thank you for joining me on Harmonious World. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.